At the beginning of the story, we're introduced to the most beautiful girl in the world. Her name is Eugénie. She shares a unique bond with her brother, the only person who knows that she possesses extraordinary powers. Eugénie can communicate with the spirits of the dead. Her brother always knew she could feel their pain. Whenever she spoke with the dead, she'd take deep, intense breaths, something that made others think she might be mentally unwell. As she grew older, the spirits reached out more often. One day her grandmother asked, "Did you go to your friend's funeral?" Eugénie didn't give a typical answer. Instead, she replied, "Yes, I went. I got to talk to a lot of people there." What she really meant was the spirits she had encountered. Her grandmother said nothing, just looked at her. One day, Eugénie went out with her brother to the market. She wasn't allowed to go out alone. Out in the world, she felt overjoyed, wandering freely through the streets. While walking, she noticed a young man reading a book about spirits. He tried to impress her, but Eugénie quickly made it clear she wasn't interested in him or his chatter. She only cared about the book he was reading. The young man, catching on, offered to lend her the book for one night. Eugénie took the book home and read it cover to cover through the night. It opened her eyes. Through it, she began to understand how to help the spirits that spoke to her. Her father, however, didn't like her. In fact, he didn't love her at all. She never met his expectations. He hated girls who were gentle, empathetic, or kind to the poor. Eugénie never understood his way of thinking. Their relationship was cold, distant, more like strangers than family. One afternoon, while brushing her grandmother's hair, part of her daily routine, a spirit suddenly reached out to her. Startled, Eugénie dropped the comb, rushed to a drawer, and began digging through it until she pulled out an old necklace. Her grandmother froze in shock. It was the same necklace her late husband had gifted her years ago, the one that had been lost for so long. She asked, "How did you know it was in there?" Eugénie quietly replied, "Grandpa told me." The next morning, Eugénie's mom woke her up. "Eugénie, get ready. Your father's taking you to the store." Eugénie lit up. Her father had never taken her out like this before. During the drive, she watched him and her brother closely. Something didn't feel right. Then she noticed a lot of luggage under the seat. Her instincts screamed at her. Something was wrong. She asked her brother, "Where are we going?" Just then, she glanced out the window and saw a strange woman staring at her. The look in the woman's eyes chilled her to the bone. Suddenly, people appeared and began dragging Eugénie away by force. She screamed for help, called out to her father and brother, but both stood frozen, watching silently. She was taken behind a heavy locked door. The camera lingers on her brother's face, overwhelmed with fear and guilt. He's broken, haunted by a single thought: why did I bring my sister to this awful place? Eugénie had been committed to a mental institution. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "I'm not crazy," as if proving her sanity was now the only thing that mattered. She was led into a room full of other women. Some were truly mentally ill. Others had simply been broken by abuse, trauma, or injustice. One woman, who seemed very much like Eugénie, gently approached and helped her adjust to the terrifying new world she'd been thrown into. Soon after, Eugénie's new friend was called in for treatment. Several male doctors surrounded her, but their eyes didn't see a person. They saw an object. They tried to hypnotize her, then forced her to undergo a cold, inhuman procedure. Even when she collapsed, no one showed an ounce of compassion. The doctors didn't care about the pain their patients endured. But there was one person who did, a nurse named Geneviève. She truly cared about every woman there. She knew what the doctors were doing, but she didn't have the power to stop it. Eugénie kept her powers a secret. She was terrified if anyone found out, they'd use her in horrific experiments. But one day she shared a truth with Geneviève, a message from Genevieve's deceased sister. Geneviève was stunned. The details Eugénie revealed, they were things only she and her sister could have known.
Eugénie, 26 ans.
The next day, Eugénie was called in for her final assessment. Surrounded by doctors, she was bombarded with questions. Eventually, under pressure, she admitted that she could talk to the dead. The moment the words left her mouth, the doctors made their decision. She must remain here for long-term treatment. Eugénie snapped. She screamed and fought back, a mistake. Her outburst became their proof that she suffered from hysteria. Their so-called treatment involved locking women in a special box, not an ordinary box, but one filled with ice. Patients were forced to stay in it for hours until their bodies went numb and they could no longer feel anything. It was torture, but the doctors believed women could be cured this way. Eugénie was thrown into the box. She begged, cried, screamed, "I'm not crazy, please don't do this to me." But no one listened. Meanwhile, Genevieve returned home one evening and felt someone was following her. It was Eugénie's brother. He was torn apart inside by what had happened. He confessed that Eugénie had a supernatural gift, the ability to speak with spirits. To prove it, he handed her Eugénie's diary. "Please," he said, "give this to my sister." Genevieve took the diary and read it through the night. With each page, she uncovered truth after truth. It shook her to her core. By the time she reached the end, she believed Eugénie. Deep down, she knew Eugénie had spoken to her sister. On the other side, we see a scene at the sanctuary where Eugénie has finally been freed from the horrific treatment she endured. Her condition is extremely fragile. She'd been lying in the snow for a long time. Her body had gone stiff from the cold, and she hadn't been able to sleep peacefully at night. Around this time, Genevieve comes to visit her. She wants to connect with her deceased sister. During their conversation, Genevieve says, "If you want to see your brother, I'll help you." But Eugénie makes it clear she doesn't just want to see her brother. What she really longs for is freedom, complete liberation from captivity. Genevieve responds hesitantly. "That might be impossible, but we'll try."
Est-ce qu'on doit faire quelque chose? Rien.
Eugénie gives it everything she has, but still fails to make contact with Genevieve's sister. Her condition continues to deteriorate. Then she suddenly says, "Your father is in danger." Panicked, Genevieve rushes home. When she arrives, her eyes land on a dirty napkin on the table, stained with blood. That's when she sees her father, unconscious. She manages to revive him just in time and saves his life. Time passes. A month goes by. Every day, Eugénie is placed in isolation. It becomes her routine: suffering, loneliness, punishment. No other woman there is treated this way. One day, Eugénie witnesses a woman fall into critical condition from an overdose caused by the doctor's negligence. Horrified, Eugénie snaps. She loses control and yells, "You're the ones responsible for all this suffering." Because of this outburst, she's thrown back into isolation. This time, they lock her in a room with no light and no ventilation. There used to be a window that was open now and then, but not anymore. That cruel nurse makes sure not a single ray of sunlight reaches her. In that darkness, Eugénie speaks to the spirits of those who died in that room, victims of the same relentless torment. It shakes her to the core. She keeps calling out to the nurse, but the woman never responds. In her confinement, Eugénie is constantly haunted by the screams of tortured souls. It's so overwhelming that she can barely eat. One day, the nurse enters the room, but Eugénie doesn't respond. The nurse sits in front of her and begins eating a delicious meal. Eugénie quietly says, "I spoke to your mother. She died right here in this room." The nurse replies with a chilling smile, "Yeah, that's right. I killed my mother in this room."
François.
Then Eugénie brings up her children. "Your children were also killed by your mother." The nurse's expression hardens. In a sudden rage, she lunges at Eugénie, grabs her by the throat and growls, "Don't you ever mention my children again!" Then she storms out. As she leaves, a girl bumps into her and silently lifts her keys. She quickly makes her way to Genevieve and hands them over. It turns out this was all part of Genevieve's plan to help Eugénie escape. She goes to Eugénie and speaks with her. Eugénie shares everything she's seen and sensed about Genevieve's sister. Listening to it all, Genevieve is stunned. She thanks Eugénie for revealing the full truth and promises to get her out of that place soon. Genevieve then approaches the doctor and says Eugénie's condition has significantly improved and she should be released from isolation. Though the doctor is a bit suspicious, he eventually agrees to have Eugénie moved to the general ward. At last, Eugénie is free from confinement. Breathing the open air after so long fills her with immense relief and joy. Just then, she sees her old friend, now in a wheelchair, a victim of one of the doctor's failed experiments. Then comes a special day at the sanctuary, a day when all the patients are allowed to wear new clothes and for a moment live like normal people. Everyone's faces light up with joy. Eugénie's brother is invited to the event. When he arrives and she sees him, She pretends not to recognize him. After all, it had been nearly a year since they last met, and everything was part of a carefully planned escape. They're almost ready to flee. But just then, the nurse who had killed her own mother spots them. She tries to intervene, but another woman grabs her. That woman completely snaps, launching a furious, frenzied attack on the doctors, lashing out in rage for all the inhuman cruelty they had inflicted. Meanwhile, we see Genevieve. She refuses to leave with Eugénie. She chooses to stay, to continue helping the other women who are still trapped, still suffering. The story then jumps forward several years. Now, we see Eugénie living somewhere peaceful. She has left everything behind. She lives a life of spiritual fulfillment and genuine happiness. And that's where this emotional journey comes to an end.